The key to this insurgency, which was the other second very, very big mistake made by the Bush administration, were the sanctuaries in Pakistan. The Taliban leadership was given sanctuary at the very highest level by the Pakistani army. In Quetta, they are still living in Quetta. The other Taliban allies of the Taliban who have settled up in northern Pakistan were also given sanctuary. They are also living in Pakistan. People know where they are living. I track them quite often. I know that Gulbuddin Hikmatyar was in such and such a city or such and such a valley. It's not difficult to do so. You read the story yesterday in the New York Times. The top Pakistani Taliban was able, journalists drove a whole day through south and North Waziristan in this tribal area. They didn't see a single soldier, and they were driven straight to the camp of this Taliban leader. So, what should have happened? Well, there was an American policy to Pakistan that because General Musharraf did what he did after 9/11 and he gave the US access to Afghanistan through Pakistan, he was, whatever he said went. Whether it was to do with domestic policies and continuing his one-man rule in Pakistan, or whether it was related to, giving sanctuary to the Taliban. And the deal with the Americans simply was that you go after Al-Qaeda, we're not interested in the Taliban. And there was a silence, a deadly silence over this whole issue of the Taliban, which the Afghans were raising all the time. Karzai would come here, he'd come and complain to Bush, and, time after time after time. I mean, it's even boring to recount how many times he did that. But absolutely nothing was done about these sanctuaries. And of course, I was writing about these sanctuaries in 2003. I visited these sanctuaries. I visited Pakistani Taliban who had been fighting in Afghanistan, had come back, who were being directed by the military intelligence and the secret services. And I wrote about it very openly, and there were several problems after that appeared. But by 2003, the Taliban insurgency had only just started. And it was clear that these sanctuaries, as long as these sanctuaries, because no guerrilla war today can be fought without a sanctuary. It's impossible with the kind of technology and, special forces and everything else that is available. You need recruits, you need ammunition, you need weapons, you need food. And you need training, and you need a safe haven where you can sleep and rest, and just as American soldiers need to sleep and rest and do R&R. So this issue of sanctuaries was now we're seeing a panic in Washington. A sudden, everybody from Chertoff to Petraeus to Negroponte to, you name it. Every day there's a statement in the US papers saying, Pakistan has to go after these sanctuaries and all that. Well, I mean, for 7 years these sanctuaries have existed. They're very consolidated. And what these sanctuaries have created, which I foresaw in 2003, was that you cannot isolate the Afghan Taliban leadership, house them in a city or in an area, and then expect them not to influence the local population. And of course that is what has exactly happened. As Al-Qaeda remained untouched, the Afghan Taliban leadership remained safe in their safe haven. They were able to mobilize large numbers of Pashtun tribesmen on the Pakistan side of the border. Today we call these people the Pakistani Taliban. Now, who are these Pakistani Taliban? The Pakistani Taliban were essentially, and the best example is Baitullah Masood. But Baitullah Masood started out life as a mule driver. He had 2 mules. And he fought in the 90s with the Taliban against the Northern Alliance. And on his 2 mules, he helped smuggle out Arabs after Tora Bora. And he was one of many mule drivers and people who had horses and transport who could bring out Al-Qaeda elements from. So these guys were essentially fixers. They bought them in. They gave them a safe house. They took money they made a lot of money out of the Arabs. And were able to, gave them food, gave them some kind of shelter, sent them on their way, and put them in touch with other extremist groups in urban Pakistan, whereby many of these Al-Qaeda were able to flee Pakistan and go back to the Middle East. I'm talking just after the war ended in 2001. Now, the tradition in Pashtun society is, the idea of the big man is very important. So you get money, then you sell your mules and you buy a pickup. And then you make more money and you buy, Baitullah Masood now has about 50 pickups. personal, which he runs on a commercial basis, apart from the pickups that might be used for his militia. Then you have a bodyguard, then the bodyguard develops into a small 50-man band, and the band develops into a full-scale militia of 3,000 to 5,000 men. And you are then the big man, and you are then responsible. And then you need to fund it, and you need to make alliances with people like Bin Laden and all who are going to help you fund it. So, so all this growth was totally, it was totally apparent to anybody who would have been looking at the situation in Pakistan in 2003. And what we have also today, of course, the most dangerous thing is that a lot of the urban groups who were fighting in Kashmir, who were fighting in Central Asia, that is Pakistani urban groups, extremist groups, have also now linked up with these Pakistani Taliban. So you have a remarkable phenomenon where you have illiterate, uneducated tribesmen, who are living in the mountains, who don't know the cities, linking up with very sophisticated, well-educated boys, who are able to carry out suicide operations, assassinations in Pakistani cities. And of course we saw the killing of Benazir Bhutto as the prime example of that.